The reality is you have human beings as your clients. And here's what we know about humans. We want to be wanted.
Now, without further ado, clear out all of your browsers, take out a notebook, and get ready to get 7, maybe 8 figures of wisdom from the one and only Joey Coleman, the world's leading expert on client experience. Joey Coleman, thank you so much for taking the time on today's show, and I'm so excited about this.
Oh, Bill, I can tell I am super excited as well. Thrilled to be here. Thanks to everybody for joining in. Excited to hang out with lawyers. I'm a recovering attorney, so I feel like I'm back amongst my people. It's all good.
Awesome. Awesome. So, Joe, you and I had a call, and it was transformational for me. And I want to just hit on this. And I know, you should introduce yourself for everyone, all that good stuff. But after you do, I want you to talk about the utility versus the country club positioning statement that you said. But first, introduce yourself, and then we'll talk about positioning.
Sure. So for the last 20 years or so, I've taught organizations how to keep their customers, whether that's a law firm figuring out ways to connect better with their clients, whether that's an auto mechanic trying to figure out ways to connect with their patrons. Regardless of the business that you're in, the experience that you're creating for your clients is really what will keep your business growing. It'll keep your business growing because not only will you continue to do business with those existing clients that you've worked so hard to get, but as you were alluding to in the intro, it leads to referrals. Most people, as a general rule, don't make a referral unless they've had a positive experience with a brand. And so if you're not creating the kind of remarkable positive experiences that get your clients talking about you, we can't really hope that they're going to be referring new business to you, let alone the right kind of business. So I've had the pleasure of working with companies, small, medium, and large around the world. I wrote a book called Never Lose a Customer Again. I give speeches, I do consulting engagements. Basically, my goal is to raise the bar on customer experience, because right now I think it's lying on the ground globally. And I think whatever we can do to enhance the client experience, regardless of the industry that we're in, is going to dramatically improve the experience all of us are having as consumers, customers, clients of the various businesses we interact with.
Joey, I want you to go into this positioning thing where you notice a lot of businesses are positioning themselves as utilities, like competing on price, results, and the things that the clients say they want. Results, results, results. But then you talk to me about this different thing where there's this different model where you can position yourself as a country club, where it's actually it's like an honor. It's a privilege to be working with the country club, to be a member of the country club. So talk to us about that positioning difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, let's be candid. Running a business is difficult, whether that's a law firm or any other type of business you're in. It's a challenge. And I think one of the challenges that most leaders face is, how do we stand out in the crowd? And what we're conditioned to do to stand out is to deliver on the promise. Like, what is the promise we're making? But to be candid, as you illustrated earlier, those are the ante-up chips to participating in the conversation. If you're not going to represent the client, if you're not going to get them taken care of in whatever legal matter you're working on, then you don't even get to be the lawyer. You don't even get to be involved in the conversation. So then when we think about, okay, well, what can we do to stand out beyond just getting the work done? Most people default to price. And it's understandable that they default to price, because invariably, when a client tells us that they decided not to work with us, what do they usually say? Well, it was just a little more expensive, or that I wanted to pay, or I found somebody that was less expensive. The reason they say that is not because they're bad people and that they're liars, but because that is the answer they give you that you have no pushback on. It's a factual statement. Your dollar amount was greater than the other dollar amount. Now, what's interesting is rarely do we say, oh, awesome, can you put me in contact with that firm? Or who were they? Or what were they charging you? Regularly, we just say, okay, well, they beat us on price. And then we go back to our team and we say, oh my gosh, we're getting beat on price in the marketplace. What do we need to do? We need to lower our prices. That's not the answer. In my opinion, the answer is to create an experience that's so remarkable that price becomes an afterthought. There's this age-old theory when you're reading a magazine like the Robb Report or Architectural Digest or some of these high-end magazines, that if you have to ask the price, it's too much, right? That, if you're thinking, oh, what is this going to cost? It's going to be too much. What I like to do is think more of the country club analogy. Now, the reality is when you join a country club, you pay a membership fee. You pay kind of an initiation fee, and then you pay an ongoing monthly membership fee. But you're not necessarily paying for a specific thing to be delivered. Oh, I get X rounds of golf per year. I get Y dinners in the clubhouse per year. I get Z drinks at the pool per year. No, what you're paying for is to be part of something bigger. You're part of a membership. You're getting to interact with other people who theoretically are either like-minded or who could afford to participate, right? And I recognize there's an aspect of privilege around this, but the point I'm trying to make is that if you think about treating your clients as members as opposed to clients, it shifts from a transactional conversation into something that is very different. It's a very different type of interaction. Part of the way to make that shift is to change the way you're speaking about it internally in the organization. Instead of thinking about transactions, instead of thinking about billable hours, instead of thinking about judgments acquired or whatever metric you're using, if we just shift the conversation to, is that member still a member? Is that person that brought that initial project to us still actively doing work with us? Because if the answer is yes, I can tell you your business is increasing in profitability and your business is increasing in size. I don't care how big you are now or what you're serving. If you do more of it with the same clients, you will increase revenues, you will increase profits, you will increase referrals.
So it seems like a lot of this is, and Dan Sullivan, who we've had on the show, talks about this, about being a buyer versus a seller, right? Where you're almost choosing whether or not this client is going to join your tribe rather than hard selling.
The reality is, if someone finds themselves in trouble with the law, statistically, they are going to find themselves in trouble with the law again. That is not a judgment on any of the human beings that you may serve or represent. And I get that we want to get them out of those issues and making, as I tell my little boys, better choices. Let's make good choices, right? Because choices have consequence. But the reality is they're going to keep coming back for more, a certain percentage of them. Additionally, the way you get referrals in a criminal defense setting is to deliver such a great outcome and such a great experience that they tell all their friends. I'm not saying that criminals hang out with criminals. What I am saying is that once you've been in a pickle or been in a bind, chances are other people in your network, when they get in a bind, will come to you because they know you've already been there. So that's the referral source we get. When we think about buying versus selling, one of the things that I always said when somebody would come to meet with me as a prospective new client, when we had a criminal law practice, was, look, this interview has two purposes. Number one, it's a chance for you to interview me, to figure out if I'm the kind of lawyer that you want to represent you through a verdict. And notice I would say a verdict, not a settlement. I wanted them to know that in any scenario, they were the driver. If they wanted to go to court, we were ready to go to court and put it in front of a jury and get a verdict. I wasn't just going to plead them out. Now, occasionally we would come to them with a deal where we would say, hey, the prosecutor has come down from their original thing. Here's the deal. Do you want it? But if they said no, great, no problem. We're going to court. Why do you think I was excited to go to court? Why do you think I was willing and able for the same flat fee representation investment to go to court? Because it gave me the chance to pitch for free. Because guess who's in the jury? Future clients, future referral sources. Guess who's on the other side of the table as prosecutors and law enforcement officials? Future clients, future referral sources, because everyone knows someone at some point in their life who gets in a bind with the law, right? You may go your entire life without ever having a criminal issue, but I guarantee there is someone in your immediate family. It may be weird Uncle Al. It may be ne'er-do-well nephew Tim. It doesn't matter. Someone is going to have need for that. And I always wanted them to go, that's who I wanted. So it's a two-part interview. Number one, you're interviewing me to see if I'm the kind of guy who can take you to a verdict. Number two, I'm interviewing you. Wait a second. I'm the one paying. No. Make no mistake. I take 1 out of every 3 clients that comes through my door. Why? To Bill's point earlier, there are only so many hours in the day. This is exactly what I used to say. The typical lawyer at any given time in their practice has somewhere between 50 and 70 active clients, 50 to 70. At any given time during my practice, I had between 200 and 250 clients. Now, I'm not saying that to brag and boast. I'm saying that's how our practice operated. And if I'm going to bring another person in, which by default means I might not have as much time with somebody else who's in the flow, you darn well better be sure that I can trust you as a client to be a good client. And I'm wanting you to be interviewed by me. And so I would tell them at the outset, well, guess what that does as humans? See, I'm a student of the human condition, okay? The reality is, whether you're talking about clients in a criminal defense practice or in a workers' comp practice or in a business law practice or in a family law practice, or you're an auto mechanic or you run a retail store or you sell dog seat covers online, I don't care. The reality is you have human beings as your clients. And here's what we know about humans. We want to be wanted. We want to feel that we're special. We want to be chosen. This happens on the playground playing kickball. We don't want to be the last one picked. I'm not doing this as a tool to play with their psychology, but I am sharing something that has a practical application in my business that is going to trigger a deep-seated need in them as a human to be selected out of the interview. Well, now we just increased our close ratio, our likelihood of landing the client dramatically because they wanted to be a client. And do you think they were a better client because they wanted to be client? Do you think they were better about paying their bills, better about returning phone calls, better about showing up for court appointments? Absolutely. Are you buying or are you selling?
Again, the book is it is the best resource for client experience on earth, I think. So walk us through these 8 phases, the assess, admit, because I think it's going to, and make sure, by the way, everyone, take notes. This is the time to take notes. These 8 phases will change the game for you.
Here's the 8 phases. To give you a little preview, they all start with the letter A. And the theory behind this is if you get your experience right, it's like getting straight A's in school. Okay, your clients are giving you a great report card. You're getting the 4.0, everybody's loving it. There are big things to come. All right, phase 1 is the assess phase. This is when a prospect is considering whether or not they want to hire you. All right, in common parlance, we refer to this as marketing and sales. In most law firms, this is where they spend the highest amount of dollars, focus, and energy trying to drum up new business. If you'll notice, I have 8 phases. It's the first phase, but it's one phase. In most law firms, it's the whole enchilada. It's everything they're doing. After that, it's just like, well, we just go on autopilot. It's fine from there. No, this is just the stepping stone number 1. Phase 1, assess. Phase 2 is the admit phase. This is day 1 of the first 100 days. I talk a lot about if you get the first 100 days right, you can have a client for life. So this is day 1 when the clock starts ticking. In the admit phase, the prospect admits that they have a problem or a need that they believe you can help them with. They sign on the dotted line. They transition from being a prospect to actually being a client. They hand over their hard-earned cash. This is the first real moment of truth. Now, as Bill alluded to earlier, this is where the emotions start to get a little different, right? They just had to write a big check for a retainer or agree to a certain billable schedule that they're not excited about paying. You're excited because you just landed a new client. So your emotions are up here and their emotions are down here. It gets worse when we move into phase 3, the affirm stage. This occurs when they walk out of your office down to their car or the subway, or they're walking home, or however they're getting back to their house, and they're doubting the decision they just made. The research shows that buyer's remorse kicks in at some level for every purchase human beings make, and the greater the dollar amount, the greater the buyer's remorse. Friends, I hate to break it to you. After a house and a car and education is in there somewhere probably, the next most expensive endeavor that most of your clients will ever enter into is hiring you. Sorry, I hate to break it to you, but that's the reality. So we know their buyer's remorse is going to be high. In the affirm stage, we want to counter those natural feelings of buyer's remorse. We want to reaffirm the decision they made to work with us. We got to let them know that you made the right call, and I'm going to give you proof really fast that reinforces that decision. We then come to phase 4, the activate phase. This is the first real moment of truth. This might be the first court appearance. This might be the first time that we're diving into discovery. Depending on the type of practice you have, what is actually occurring in the activate stage can differ. But the activate stage is that first real moment where the client gets to see the value you provide. They get to see you in action. It's not in a sales context. It's in they are a client. You are the lawyer representing them. What's happening? We then go to phase 5, the acclimate phase. Now, pro tip, this is where most law firms fall off the rails. And when I say fall off the rails, I mean it gets abysmal fast. In the acclimate phase, we are holding our clients' hands as we navigate them through the process of doing business with us. Now, here's the interesting thing about being a lawyer. You've got 2 things you're navigating them through: your way of doing business and the legal system's timeframes and timelines for doing business. So I don't know about you, but like when I was a criminal defense lawyer, one of the big challenges I had is trying to explain to people like, look, we're not going to be in court tomorrow. If you hired me today, we're not going tomorrow. And by the way, if we go tomorrow for a preliminary hearing, I don't want to go back for the next one for a long time. Now stop and think about that. As the lawyer, I'm saying strategically, the best move for you legally is to pump the brakes and to have your trial date be as far in the future as possible. That's the smart legal strategy. But as a human who maybe has run afoul of the law, I want to get this done with as quickly as possible because I'm worrying about this. I'm thinking about this. So in the acclimate stage, you're holding your client's hand. The way you can tell if you are doing a good job currently in the acclimate stage is if you gave me a list of all of your clients and their phone numbers. And I called them up and I said, hey, this is Joey Coleman. I work for Bill. And I was just calling with a singular question. What is happening next in your case? Would your clients be able to answer that question? Probably not. Now you may think, but Joey, I told them what's happening next. I told them at the beginning that it's going to take 1.5 years. There's going to be hearings. There's going to be depositions. There's going to be discovery. There's going to be preliminary injunctions. There's going to be arguing motions. Then we might get to trial. There might be settlement offers. They forgot. They didn't go to law school. Stop and think about how awkward first year of law school was when you're trying to write this stuff down in a notebook to remember what is actually happening. I dated myself a little. If you're one of the younger kids, you were keyboarding it in. Okay. But the moral of the story is it took you a while to figure it out. And for many of you, when you get a new type of case, you have to go to the books to figure out what the statute of limitations are, to figure out what the filing time periods are. You don't even remember them. And you do this for a living. The moral of the story is your clients aren't feeling well enough acclimated, which brings us to phase 6. Phase 6 is the accomplish phase. This is when the client achieves the goal that they had when they originally decided to hire you way back when they were a prospect. Now, in criminal defense, in some ways, the thought was, well, this is pretty easy. What I'm hoping to accomplish is a not guilty verdict. But is probation accomplishment then? Is taking a plea deal where you get credit for time served okay? Well, I don't know. So the reality is the thing that they're hoping to accomplish may change over the course of the representation. And if you're not checking in with them regularly on the way the things are changing, the way the landscape is improving, what their options are, you might lose track of what they're actually trying to accomplish. Frankly, they're going to lose track of what they're trying to accomplish. If they do not accomplish their goal, you never get the chance to move them to phase 7 and phase 8. So this is actually a barrier to ongoing motion through the 8 phases. If they don't accomplish, we don't get to the next phases. Phase 7, adopt, where they become loyal to you and only you. They're not going to go get a different lawyer for a different case. They're not going to go elsewhere. They are committed to only working with you. This is where price ceases to matter. And last but not least, phase 8, the advocate phase, where they become a raving fan, singing your praises far and wide, referring new business to you. If you doubt the validity of those phases, I would ask you, when was the last time that you bought a new product and immediately, before you'd opened it, gone on Facebook and told all your friends you bought it and that they should go buy it too because it's amazing. It doesn't happen. You get it, you use it, you make sure it works, you make sure you're feeling good about it. You achieve the goal that you had when you originally bought the product. And then once you've achieved the goal, then you share on social media, then you tell your family and friends about it.